a blind father inquiring about what's going on in the battlefield where his sons are there. And he also, has a stake on both sides because Pandavas are also his nephews. So it starts with a very kind of simple, simplistic manner. I think Gita is simple if we take it, one by one, step by step, and understand it deeply. But start is very simple. And you have some thoughts about Dhritarashtra that you would like to share with, here and.
Well, my take about Gita, I look at from the Vedantic point of view, and for that reason, concept learning from Gita is very, very important for me. And obviously, the first chapter is the setup for learning those concepts. And the first chapter basically sets it up in a way that there are conflicts in life, conflicts in our thought, and how wading through all these things with those beautiful concepts we can steer through life. And that is my personal take about the entire part of Gita. The first chapter to me seems like sets up a situation when we are conflicted, like Arjun. Okay. And that's why it's a beautiful backdrop. Regarding Dhritarashtra, it is a very, I would say it's a metaphorical character to me. He was born blind. He was not a very bad person. Okay. But he also got blinded by love or affection towards his own children, knowing fully well that they were wrong and the Pandavas were right. And that is what is called moha, sammoha.
Yeah.
Dhritarashtra's blindness is basically his intellectual blindness. And that's my take about Dhritarashtra.
No, I think I agree with you. I mean, metaphoric or real, in both cases, he was blind and blind, physically blind, and also blind to, I mean, his children, his sons, that he was kind of, he loved Duryodhan and everybody so much. But also he was in love with, he was an ambitious person. I mean, he wanted to be the king. He wanted his sons to follow up on that kingdom. So that ambition also played a big role in what happened in Mahabharata um, and uh, and Gita. It's like he really wanted, was driven so much. You said that he knew what is right and what is wrong, but his passion for the throne or passion for kingdom or staying as a king and passing it on to his son was important to him, or more important than what's right and what's wrong.
Actually, that is the feeling that blinded him, blinded his own judgment, blinded his righteousness.
So that brings us down to the first shloka. But before we go there, the role of Sanjay, and whether real or metaphysical, um, I think role of Sanjay is very important because he was the communication person between what was happening in the in the battlefield and Dhritarashtra. If it was not Sanjay as a character, probably we wouldn't have had Gita in our hands because something was happening in the battlefield. And of course, Dhritarashtra wanted to know, and there was this communication person, Sanjay, and his character has been displayed so well in Gita. He's just kind of a narrator without putting too much of his own judgment there, except here and there, a little bit. So I do like the character, these both character who are starting Gita, at least the first chapter, sorry, the first sloka or first verse. Your thoughts on Sanjay?
I think it's the same line. To me, Sanjay is the data collector, okay, or data retriever.
Yeah.
Okay, he doesn't pass any judgment. He just provides the data in front of Dhritarashtra. Okay, and then how Dhritarashtra's projection, Arjun's projection about the event, or Duryodhana's projection about the event, and how Krishna projects the event in a global form, that is the whole setup in the first chapter. That's how I think.
Yeah, no, that point is well taken. So we have talked about Dhritarashtra, we have talked about Sanjay. Now let's talk about the first verse. First, to me, it's a very important verse, and mainly because it talks about dharma and karma. Basically, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. It does not separate the two. And many people in our lives do separate. Either there is a spiritual journey or a physical journey. Either you are in this world or you are doing something in the spiritual world. They take a different path. And we see that, physically in many places. I mean, I was in Kumbh recently, and I met many young people who have kind of decided that they want to pursue the spiritual path. And there is some sort of pride they hold in that, doing that, as if they are doing a tyag. They are, letting go of the mundane things that you and I are busy doing. And Gita is, in the first verse, it says, no, you can have both in the same place. You can be following your mainstream work and still be spiritual. So to me, that's a hugely important thing, because my life also at some stage, I wanted to leave this mundane world and go be spiritual and follow a guru. But something held me back, and it was mostly Gita, and Gita is my passion, as you know. It's yours too. I mean, dharma has got a lot of explanations, and what's the most practical explanation of dharma? We can come to that. But what do you think about this separating the dharmakshetra, or the domain of dharma and domain of karma? Do you think they're separate, or do you think they could be combined, or it is different for different people?
Okay, I mean the point is dharma is, as I understood, is something that upholds these universal laws. Dharan. Okay. So dharma gets different facets in different person's life. Okay.
Yeah.
However, of course, we have got 4 yogas, everybody knows about that. For me,
Can you elaborate the 4 yogas that you think everybody knows?
the point that I'm making is that the righteous way of life, as it is modulated by different facets of our life. Okay. So the question is, for me in my life, doing the karma, or the actions and the thoughts were the most important. In contrast to you, I never looked for any guru, anything like that. Okay.
Yeah.
When I found out, there were some teachers along the way. However, it is questioning my own self and trying to get those principles in my life and how I can adapt to it to the best of my ability. That is, to me, is the gift from Gita. Okay. So in other words, what I tried to tell, it is dharma and then swadharma. What suits you to set up that righteousness. Okay, and anything that we think, our thoughts and action has always to be modulated by whether it is righteous or not. Sometimes these events, thoughts are a little bit complicated, as Arjun faces later on. Okay, he tries to become a pacifist. He tries to project. He gives up. He wants to give up everything. Is that right? Possibly not in that situation, what he is facing. And that's what Krishna directs him to. So, in summary, I would say dharma is our righteousness according to our situation. We do our actions, but we have that righteousness at the back of our mind all the time. And that's where we did talk about it many times, that's where the dhi or the discretion comes, which modulates our thoughts. And
So that is what buddhi you are talking about. But
yeah.
what I think what I understand from what you are saying is that you can be in mainstream, you can be working, you can be doing what you're doing,
Exactly.
with dharma being in the background
Always.
So basically you are also saying that to stay together, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, together, the same line as Krishna follows, as
Actually,
compared to...
that is basically karma yoga.
Yeah, that is basically karma yoga. I mean, karma sannyas has a place, and I'm sure it will continue to have a place. It had a place in Krishna's time, it has a place now. But that is not the highway, right?
Well, karma sannyas is the karma sannyas is a very confusing term many times in our daily life. Okay, because we have got a different way of thinking about sannyas. Sannyas means renunciation. Okay, and the great word that action inaction in action. Inaction in action doesn't mean sannyas. Inaction means that your mind is still, it is not chattering, okay, in the middle of your action. Okay.
Yeah. No, all I'm saying is, like, there is role for Swami Vivekananda, there is role for Swami Ramakrishna, there is Swami, Sarvapriyanand.
Sure.
They have taken that path, and there is nothing wrong, and they're teaching us, and they're giving good, lessons to us. But for us, it's not incompatible. Being a doctor, being an engineer, you can
Obviously
still
not.
have the spiritual.
Absolutely not. What you just said, yes. You can be a doctor, engineer, anything like that, as long as you always use discretion towards righteousness.
Yeah.
So Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra is the same place, in my mind too.
Okay. So, and that's why I love this first verse, because it does bring Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra together. And of course, Dhritarashtra's desire to know what's going on. Talking about dharma, I mean, it is a term that is really not well understood. I mean, people try to explain it, but it's not really good explanation there. But we both live in America, and we hear this term, do the right thing. And again, do the right thing. Sometimes, what is the right thing? Then it becomes a little confusing. So basically, for me, practically, and we talked, before this recording about it a little bit, is that, it's all about being, doing, and staying on the right path. So being the right person, it's like, how do you become a person? Like, sthita pragya is the ultimate, reality that we want to be. But how do you become that being that thinks right most of the time, or all the time, or has in the background dharma all the time, and then doing the right thing? So if your being is up here, most likely you will do the right thing most of the time. and then staying on the right path. And that's, I think, is very important to understand that even after Gita, when Arjun has learned and he's going to fight and he's going to do that, Krishna makes sure that he stays on the right path. In many times, he was hesitating in the war, at times, mostly because of his ethical thinking or ethical background. He was hesitating to kill Karn or kill Bhishma in the backdrop of Shikhandi, but Krishna was there as an accountability partner to continue that. So this is my simple understanding of dharma. How do you apply? So try to be, evolve your being that you are, and then do the right thing, which most likely will happen if you lift your level up and then stay on the right path. So these three practical applications of dharma. Any thoughts on that?
Well, mine is little different idea, and we talked about it. My thing is first one has to, in the being stage, you have to sharpen the buddhi, because if the buddhi is not sharpened, it doesn't reflect on the thoughts and action. The thoughts and action by itself does not become your being. When it is sharpened by buddhi, then of course it goes into the being. Your life reflects it.
No, that's a very important point. I mean, when you develop your being, evolve your being, it's not just evolving spiritually, but also intellectually. That you do. I mean, not only I take it, you also include that, it's like if you want to be a doctor, you should have the right training to do surgery. You are a surgeon, I'm a surgeon. So you do need the skills and the means, but also discretion, like when to do surgery, when not to do surgery. I mean,
Exactly.
those things need to be developed as a being, as a platform of being. Is that what you are trying to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it is the dhi that takes you towards righteousness, because mind will chatter. Mind will be kind of directed by ego, expectation, perception, and all those things. It is dhi that filters it and puts you in the right way.
Yeah. So, so let's talk a little bit about it. Gita also mentions in different places, man, buddhi, ahankar.
Yep.
So man is separate, buddhi is dhi, and ahankar is ego. And you often talk about these three things, I mean, whenever we come to any topic in Gita, you can't escape these three things. But dhi is the most important one, at least as far as how you act out and how you manifest in the world.
Yes. Actually, the verse that sometimes I showed you, Gita tells you about the hierarchy.
Yeah.
We did talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, in a very short way, how do we function? We see an object, we like it. So that's why it is called sense object many times when it's translated. Our afferent stimuli from our five Gyanendriya, we take the information, we send it to our brain, mind, whatever, okay? And your mind is controlled by perceptions, and perception has got three factors: past learning experience, your ego, and your expectations and desire. Okay, now at the mind level, if you work, then your efferent stimuli and your karmendriyas does the action. In that one, in this simple thing, it's all in medical terms, it's almost like a spinal reflex. Okay, but when you add dhi to analyze, filter those thoughts and actions, then it's like a cortical stimuli, a cortical reflex, where you have thought it, analyzed it, all the data, and then you are doing the right thing. And that's how I picturize it.
Yeah. So doing the right thing, that cycle, you just talked about. Doing the wrong thing. I mean, knowing what is right, but still doing the wrong thing. So that is where you think you talked about desire complex and ego. Those two factors are the ones that probably pull you towards doing the wrong thing,
Yes,
knowing what is the right thing to do.
yes. It is the ego desire complex. Now,
Yeah.
ego doesn't, a lot of people think ego as pride. Ego is not pride. The ego of Vedanta is not pride. Ego is I, me, mine, looking at everything from my own point of view.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like identity. It's more
Yes.
like,
Yes.
okay.
For
Yeah.
example, in our specialty, let's say that we did a surgery.
Yeah.
It is nice because we prepared ourselves, we did it nicely, patient did fine and all that. Okay. It's a job well done. But
Right.
if you wait for the appreciation, that's when the judgment becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
And
if you do this for, it's like other reasons, like, other
yeah,
reasons mean you want, you're doing a research and you want the result to be a certain way and you manipulate data, it's like that's where the kind of gray
problem
lines
happens.
come,
Yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
I mean, if you start doing the data manipulation for the desired result, you got the focus off from the result itself.
yeah. So it's very interesting that we start from dharma. We kind of know what the right thing is. We also know how to develop into a good being, or a developed being. Um, but there are forces, negative forces, you can call it negative forces, that will try to pull you down. And you mentioned in the beginning of this, conversation, conflicts. So there will always be conflicts. It has always been there, whether it is 10,000 years ago, you talk about Ram, whatever time period he was in, or whether it was Krishna's time, or it was Buddha's time. There has always been conflicts. So are
Definitely.
we thinking of a conflict-free world or minimal conflict world? I think that's one of the important points that Osho made once about Krishna is that um, was he ahimsa or was he hinsa? And he used the word minimum hinsa. So, with minimum hinsa, what can you achieve? I mean, you need to achieve something where dharma prevails or the right thinking prevails. And how do you do that? If negotiations fail, how do you do that? So it's a question of, it's like we can think that there is ahimsa, the ideal, or, violence for violence sake, or kind of necessary hinsa or minimum hinsa. So how do you do conflict resolution, ultimate conflict resolution? And it's a challenge even today. There is
It's a,
wars
it is a
going on.
challenge all the time in life. All the time in life. In in the verse 10 of this first chapter, you see that Arjun has gone to the war and Duryodhan has gone to the war, both of them. Okay. Initially, they both thought they are right in their path. Okay. Arjun moves away from it, wants to move away from it because suddenly he sees the whole destruction in future. Okay. So he kind of gets paralyzed. But look at Duryodhan. In the verse 10, he enumerates uh, all the great generals that he has. And he is looking at it and he kind of belittles Pandav's army. Okay?
I'm glad you're bringing up Duryodhan. I think that's what we will do in our next discussion. What is Duryodhan point of view? I think it's very important to know before we know what is Arjun's point of view, or how does Krishna take Arjun, from that stage that you're saying into a stage where he kind of gets freedom from that moh or that, attachment. That thing. I just want to point out, this is my go-to book. This is, anyone wants to learn the basics. I mean, this Gita Press, Gita is a very simple, it's like a Sanskrit verse and Hindi translation. There is English one as well, but I go to Hindi because it's more close to the Sanskrit meaning for me. So we will continue our discussion, and next week we will talk about Duryodhan perspective. And as we discussed, we are not going verse by verse. We are going kind of theme by theme, and maybe in second chapter we will go verse by verse, or a group of verses with same meaning and same theme. Any final remarks, Amit?
This is my compendium of Gita. The little pocket Gita is from Times of India.
Yeah.
It has got the Sanskrit part and the English part. Okay. And it's very good. The other one is Swami Nikhilananda's Gita. You can get it from Ramakrishna Mission bookstore. I think it is important to go through Gita because it's such a practical compendium to life. And I love that part. It is not only philosophy, it is how we can distill it in our life. So I would like to end this, my statement, that I'm glad that we started it. And my whole point is how this principle can distill into our lives. Can it enrich our lives? And of course, when we have this, as I discussed with you, of course, as we have these talks, and hopefully other people will join, we'll be able to discuss these things from each and everybody's perspective. And we should do it in the spirit of that famous verse which we discussed yesterday, that let us sit down, study together. Through discussion, we sharpen each other's intellect. Let us not bear any ill will to each other, because any discussion becomes an argument once the ego enters that my point is bigger than yours.
Yeah, you're talking about Om Sahana Bhavatu.
Om Sahanam Bhavatu Sahanam Bhunaktu.
Yeah.
So maybe we should say that in the beginning or the end of the discussion and carry it in the form of discussion and participation.
Amit, I never forget that we spent a whole summer in dissection hall in Patna in anatomy room. And we survived that. So now it's a different chapter of our life. And I think we should do this. But it's not like it will enrich. It has enriched my life. And you always say that Gita has enriched your life. So it has been, a very great contributor to our lives. So why not share it with other people?
Absolutely. Well, I wish well to everybody, who wish to you, your family, and the future participants.
धर्मक्षेत्र और कुरुक्षेत्र में मन को मोह का शूल मिला है।